Good morning. Welcome to Common Ground Church. We're glad you're here today with us. Whether you're in your living room at home, or maybe you're going to be in one of the overflow theaters, or maybe you'll be in the in-person theater with me, we're glad you're here, wherever you're at. My name is Brandon, and I'm the Student Ministry Coordinator here at Common Ground Church. Pastor David, he's out of town this week, and he's going to enjoy fall break with his family, going to go see some family. So he asked me to preach this morning. Don't worry. He'll be back next week, and I'll only keep you here stuck with me for 3 hours or so, give or take, okay? Just kidding. So we'll actually get right into it. We're in the middle of this series called The Gospel Lens, and we're looking at the world with a biblical mindset. It's no secret that this year, 2020, for many of us has been a year to forget. It's been a little rough. You can't go on the internet without seeing some meme or some joke about wake me up when we get to 2021. Just get me through this, right? It's been a tough time for our country, for our world, some tense times, and we're getting through it. But luckily, we as Christians, we have something that we can really rely on to help us get through tough times. And so the past few weeks, Pastor David, he's talked about focusing through prayer, grace, and humility. This week, we're going to be talking on focusing on the mission of the gospel lens. So as Common Ground Church, or as Christ followers in general, what is our mission? What are we about? What should we be doing? Common Ground, trust me, from the very beginning, was about Christ's mission. This church was started to intentionally reach people for Christ. That's our goal. That should be and always has been our goal and always will be our goal. In a letter to the Corinthians, the Apostle Paul, he writes about this mission from God, this mission to spread the good news. So join me in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. We're starting in verse 19. It says this, "Even though I am a free man with no master, I have become a slave to all people to bring many to Christ. When I was with the Jews, I lived like a Jew to bring the Jews to Christ. When I was with those who follow the Jewish law, I too live under the law, even though I am not subject to the law. I did this so I could bring to Christ those who are under the law. When I am with the Gentiles who do not follow the Jewish law, I too live apart from the law so that I can bring them to Christ. But I do not ignore the law of God. I obey the law of Christ. Verse 22, when I am with those who are weak, I share their weaknesses. For I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings." Can I tell you a secret? This verse is where we get the name Common Ground. It's where we took it from. I know, it's not from some hipster coffee place called Common Grounds. I know, who knew? We get it from this verse. That's why we're called Common Ground Church. And we have a goal. We have a mission, a purpose. We're to find common ground with everyone, doing everything we can to save others, to reach others for Christ. Other translations calls it be everything for everybody. That's our goal, to spread the good news. And in order to do that, Paul says we need to be like Jesus. And here's what I mean by that. We're going to skip ahead to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We'll look at verse 31. "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Don't give offense to Jews or Gentiles or the church of God. I too try to please everyone in everything that I do. I don't just do what is best for me. I do what is best for others so that many may be saved. And you should imitate me just as I imitate Christ." So Paul, he writes to these Corinthians and he tells them to imitate Christ, to be like Christ, to be Christ-like. And as Christians, we should probably take note of that, right? He's talking to the Corinthians here, but he's talking to us too. If we're Christians, we're named after Christ, we should be Christ-like. We should imitate him. So what does Christ do? Christ becomes all things to all people. He meets them where they're at. He finds common ground. We need to see people the way Jesus sees people. Seeing as though we've been having our in-person meetings in a movie theater, it kind of got me thinking that it would be pretty cool to talk about these. You know what these are? These are 3D glasses. You see them? I bought them on Amazon. When I opened the package, literally the blue lens fell out, so not great condition. But they're 3D glasses. They'll work for this. And not so much anymore, but about 10 years ago, you couldn't go to a movie, maybe 5, 10 years ago, you couldn't go to a movie and have it not be in 3D. Like everything was in 3D. Every movie. And I remember one of my favorite things to do with friends in high school was to go to a midnight premiere of a 3D movie. Remember those midnight premieres? They don't really do them anymore. It was just a cool, awesome thing to do. You felt cool. Movies like Avatar, The Hobbit series, the Prince of Persia, Clash of the Titans. These movies were really cool in 3D, if you watch them in theaters in 3D. They don't necessarily hold up on their own without that, but if you watch them how they were made to be seen, they're really cool. In fact, I watched Avatar the other day on Disney Plus at my house, and it was a good movie, but it wasn't the same as being in the theater, being surrounded by all that sound and having these 3D glasses on in that world, just immersed in the world and having all the details and everything. Like, I mean, that movie had like fireflies that it felt like they were coming at you, right? These types of movies, it's simply not the same if you don't see them without 3D. They were made for 3D. Have you ever tried to watch a 3D movie in a theater without the glasses? It works. You can see what's going on. You can see, but there's something that's not quite right. It gets a little blurry, a little fuzzy. You might get a headache after a while. But if you put on the glasses, you put on the 3D glasses, everything becomes clear. Things pop out at you. It's like you're there. It's like I'm there in the living room with you. I'm not, but I'm wearing my 3D glasses, so I was. Like I said, it's how things were meant to be seen when you watch them with the glasses. Jesus is like the ultimate pair of 3D glasses. Without him, things they just don't quite make sense. There's something missing. They're a little blurry, a little fuzzy. There's a lot of headaches. Think about it. This year, 2020, without Jesus, it can be tough. It can be tough to handle, tough to get through. But when we see things through Jesus, things become more clear. They pop out at you. They make sense. It's how things were meant to be seen. And this is why we must imitate Christ, like Paul said. That's why we must be like him. He wants us to see things the way Jesus sees things. We want to see people the way Jesus sees people. We want to see through his gospel lens. And so we're going to look at an example in the New Testament of how Jesus saw people. And trust me, you've heard this story probably 100 times at church before. That's okay. I want you, it's an oldie but a goodie. Today, though, I want you to try and have a fresh perspective. And I want you to listen for look at how God sees people. Look at how Jesus sees this person, how he finds common ground with this person. So we're going to be in John chapter 4, starting at verse 3. So he left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually he came to a Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Joseph's well was there. And Jesus, tired from a long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. This woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, "If you only knew the gift God has for you, and if you knew who you were speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, And this well, it's very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, why do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" Jesus replied, "Anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." "Please, sir," the woman said, "give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water." "Go and get your husband," Jesus told her. "I don't have a husband," the woman replied. Jesus says, "You're right. You don't have a husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and now you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." So, I know we just read a big chunk of that chapter, and that was a lot to take in. So let's break it down a bit and unpack it. Think about how Jesus found common ground with this woman, how he saw this woman. First, he went to where she was at. He met her there. He was waiting for her. This woman, she was at a well at noon, in the heat of the day, for a reason. She had a reputation. She didn't want anyone talking to her. She didn't want to run into anyone she knew. She didn't want to have anything to do with anybody. But Jesus is there waiting for her. Jesus seeks her out. They had nothing in common. Jesus was a Jew. She was a Samaritan. And if you know anything about history, those two cultures, they don't get along. They don't like each other. Jesus took the time to talk to her anyway. Jesus showed her kindness. He showed her compassion and grace. He knew that this woman was a sinner. He could have started out the conversation by condemning her. He could have started out by telling her how much she needed him, and he would have been right. But that's not what he does. He's kind to her. He met her where she was at. He gets on her level. Next, Jesus tells her about a better way, this living water. This woman, she wanted a better way. She wanted to be satisfied. She wanted to never be thirsty again. She wanted to live like Jesus. And only then does Jesus deal with her sin. This woman, she could have been an example of who Paul was talking about in Corinthians. She was weak. She had weaknesses. She was a sinner. But Jesus became all things for her. He found common ground with her. He showed her a better way. We see Jesus do this countless times in the New Testament, becoming all things to all people, finding common ground. Think about Zacchaeus, the wee little man. Think about all the people that he healed, all the people that he came in contact with. Think about all the disciples that he met. And the first time he met them, he told them to leave their families, leave their jobs, leave everything and come and follow him. Think about the thief that was crucified and died next to him. When Jesus was with those who were weak, he shared their weaknesses. He found common ground with people in order to share the good news. So Paul, he tells us to imitate Jesus. He tells us to be like Jesus because our mission is to spread the good news and to glorify God. So we got to put on our 3D glasses. We got to see people how Jesus sees people. So how do you find common ground with people around you? You got to look for them. You got to pay attention. Maybe you pray for an opportunity. And just like putting on 3D glasses, opportunities, they'll start to pop out at you. You'll see them. You'll notice them. There are so many people, though, that we don't see. So many people that we don't want to see, that we choose to ignore. We miss out on so many opportunities to share the gospel, sometimes on purpose. Don't miss out on those opportunities. Take them when they present themselves. Be intentional with people. Jesus was intentional with the woman at the well. He knew why she was there. He met her where she was and gave her a better way. He found common ground with her. Jesus was intentional with the woman of the well. Who can you be intentional with? What about the guy at Triple Play? What about the girl that takes your order at Dutch Bros? What about the cashier, the ticket taker at this movie theater that we're meeting in person? What about your coworkers, your family? Be intentional with people around you. Look for opportunities. So, who should we find common ground with here in this crazy world of 2020? Everybody. Sinners, people that are lost, that don't have Jesus in their lives. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to engage in their sin. I'm not. We shouldn't share their sin, but we need to meet them where they're at. We need to be on their level. We need to show them grace. We need to not think that we're better than they are, because we're not. Other people that we need to find common ground with in 2020 are people that have different beliefs than us. People that have different political views than us. Oh, that one's real, huh? People with different lifestyles, people with different worldviews. Because if they only knew the gift of God, the gift that God has for them, if they only knew, you could be the one to tell them about it. You could be the one to show them God's gift. We need to see people how Jesus sees people. So put on your 3D glasses. Focus on the mission of Christ. Share the gospel. Love others. Pastor David said something this last week that has been I've been chewing on it all week. And it was simple, but it's profound and impactful. He said, God is eternal and people will live in eternity. Meaning that people will either live in eternity with God in heaven, or they'll live in eternity in eternal separation, hell. We need to be everything to all people. We need to imitate Christ so that we can reach out and share with them the gospel, the good news, so that they can live in eternity in heaven. I challenge you to pray about how you can use your life like Paul and Jesus. Reflect. Dive into Scripture. Listen to God and seek Him. How can you imitate Christ and find common ground to win others for Christ? You see, Paul, he knew that his faith was inauthentic. He knew that his faith was false, fake, if he abandoned the pattern of life set by Jesus and no longer cared for people. If we aren't being imitators of Christ, if we don't care for the people around us, can we really say that we're following His mission? Can we really say that we're following God? This is our mission. Spread the good news. Show that there's a better way. Glorify God. Find common ground with others. Will you pray with me? Dear Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to speak here at Common Ground Church this week. I pray that these people, Lord, will take your word to heart. And I pray that they would have a renewed focus on the mission that you give them. That they would seek out opportunities in their communities and in their lives to find common ground with the people around them. I pray that they would have the courage and the faith to speak boldly about the good news that you have, and that they would do so with grace and kindness and compassion to those who need to hear it. I pray that we will remember to continue to rely on you through these tough times and continue to seek you and continue to imitate you. Because people, they're watching us right now, Lord. I pray that you just be with us in that and give us strength and encouragement. In your name I pray. Amen. So are you sitting there today, listening, and you're not quite sure what this better way that I was talking about was, what this living water was, about this good news? If that's you, and you want to know more about it, or you want that, there's going to be a button that's going to appear on the screen. It's going to say, I commit my life to Jesus. If that's you, or if you just want more information about this whole God thing, or you just want to talk to somebody, I would encourage you to click that button. We would love to have somebody reach out to you and talk to you and pray with you and just love on you. Thank you for joining me today here, church. Have a great week.